If you're looking to buy a new MacBook, it has probably never been this confusing to figure out which one you should buy, especially now that the chips have been upgraded to M2 Pro and M2 Max, and Apple has just released the new 15-inch MacBook Air, which is way more affordable if you want a larger display. But once you upgrade it, the price shoots way up. But don't worry, I can guarantee you that if you stick through this video till the end, you'll know exactly which MacBook is right for you. But before we get into explaining all of the differences between these MacBooks, I've got to talk about the prices for each one in the lineup. Starting with the M1 Air, this is the oldest one, which retails for $1,000, but you can find it on sale on Amazon right now for as low as $750. Then we have the redesigned M2 Air, which has just gotten a price reduction down to $1,099, but I've seen it as low as $899. The M2 MacBook Pro retails at $1,300, the 14-inch Pro is at $2,000, and the 16-inch at $2,500. But once again, there are much better prices that you can get if you use the links down in the video description. Now, getting into the differences, the first thing I want to discuss is the design and portability. The new redesigned M2 MacBook Air is by far the fittest of them all and the most portable in terms of footprint, being quite similar to the M1 MacBook Air. On the other hand, the 16-inch MacBook Pro is massive in comparison. The only laptop here that actually got thicker compared to the previous generation. This thing weighs 4.8 pounds, about 78% heavier than the M2 Air. But the one that feels the lightest is the 15-inch Air because of its large size but super thin design that is only slightly heavier than its 13-inch version. Because of that, it really stands out in this lineup because you get a large screen but a super thin and lightweight design. And with that said, the original M1 Air just doesn't kind of compare to the other ones with its old design and the fact that you miss out on MagSafe and fast charging. Now, moving on to the keyboards and the trackpads, they are all very similar with the newer style of Magic Keys, which are all very nice. However, the M2 13-inch MacBook Pro is the only one that still has a touch bar, which I personally don't really like because I prefer having those physical function keys, and of course all of them have Touch ID built in. Now, as far as the trackpads, they are all basically the same, with the larger models just having larger versions, but they're all Force Touch and they all work very well, way better than Windows laptops. Now, no matter which Mac you buy, you need our sponsor's really useful app, Clean My Mac X, to protect, optimize, and clean your Mac. I have used it for 4 years now because of how simple but powerful it is, and they are constantly improving it, recently releasing the Moonlock engine, which detects malware up to 2 times faster, and it even works with external drives, browser extensions, attachments, and archives, and this is the second most used portion of the app. Clean My Mac X also deletes files quickly and automatically, including hidden leftover junk files, and the Lens tool helped me find and delete a forgotten 55GB backup that was just wasting space. It can also update apps, clean up cache, monitor health, and protect from Trojans, data miners, and recent browser hijackers. I also love the Menu app, which helps to monitor your devices and performance, and if your Mac feels slow, just hit the free up memory button. Check out all the functions with a 7-day free trial or buy it for 20% off for the next 2 weeks using the link in the description. In terms of ports, all of the lower priced Macs come with 2 Thunderbolt ports and a headphone jack, while the newer M2 models support high impedance headphones, and only the M2 Airs come with that MagSafe 3 port, which matters because it frees up one of the Thunderbolt ports to be used instead of having to use that for charging. On the other end, both 14 and 16-inch models come with 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, which means that they could support multiple external displays, up to 2 with the M2 Pro and 4 with the M2 Max, and they are also the only ones that support high refresh rates and up to 8K resolution. The regular M1 and M2 chips only support a single external display, and they also lack an HDMI port, and those things could be one of the biggest limitations for people, and you also miss out on that SD card slot. Moving on to displays, there are a lot of differences to talk about, but one of the biggest ones is the notch and notchless design, as well as the thinner bezels. And as you could see, the M1 and M2 13-inch Pro have that old design, so they don't come with that notch, which also means that they only come with a 720 720p webcam compared to 1080p on the redesigned models. Take a look at the video and microphone quality differences in this comparison. This is the M1 MacBook Air's 720p webcam quality. This is the M2 MacBook Air's 1080p video quality. This is the M2 MacBook Pro's 720p webcam quality. This is the 15-inch MacBook Air's 1080p video quality. This is the 14-inch MacBook Pro's video quality. And this is the 16-inch MacBook Pro's video quality. Now, in terms of the actual nits or brightness of the displays, the M2 Pro and the M2 Airs have 500 nits, while the older M1 comes with only 400, so the reflections can be slightly more noticeable. Now, all of these have pretty good color support with P3 wide colors. However, the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros come with much better mini LED displays compared to the conventional LCDs, which can actually go up to a peak 1600 nits or 1000 nits sustained across the entire screen with a white page for hours and hours on end. This makes a big difference when watching HDR videos, especially at night where the regular LCD's black levels look gray, and you definitely need the mini LED display if you are editing HDR content. Now, for normal use, you are still locked in at 500 nits unless you download the Vivid app to unlock it, making it much easier to use outdoors or in bright rooms. The other way that the 14 and 16-inch stand out is ProMotion, which gives you smooth 120Hz refresh rates, but to me, that is not a deal breaker. Now let's talk about the speaker quality. The M2 Air did get a new speaker system with 4 speakers, but to be honest, it doesn't sound that much better than the M2 Pro or the M1 Air. In fact, some people still think the M1 Air sounds better, and that might be because there are no longer speaker grills on the M2 Air because it got smaller. Now, the new 15-inch has 6 speakers packed inside, just like the 14 and 16-inch laptops, and it is a good improvement over the smaller laptops, but it still can't compete with the volume and bass of the thicker Pros. Go ahead and take a listen. In terms of real-world mixed battery life, the M2 MacBook Pro is going to give you the best performance because of its large battery, the efficient chip, and the small display, but the 15-inch Air and the 16-inch Pro are just slightly behind. The only one that can be slightly disappointing is the 14-inch Pro because of its performance to battery size ratio, which takes a hit if you start pushing it. But remember, any of these laptops with MagSafe could charge to 50% in just 30 minutes. And now let's talk about the CPU and graphics performance. The M1 Air is the only one with the lower single-core performance, but in the real world, for simple tasks, you don't really notice it. Even for tougher web-based applications like Figma, the M2 MacBook Air was super smooth in our project provided by 500 Designs, which is one of the best design studios in California. It zoomed in nice and smooth, and then exporting 12 high-resolution web pages, the results end up not being as big of a difference as you would expect. Now, if you're doing a lot of CPU-based productivity work, then the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros with the M2 Pro and M2 Max chips are going to be the best options. However, for the majority of people, the M2 Pro is more than fast enough, and even the M2 chip is more than enough for even some heavier tasks. Now, one thing I have to point out is that even though the fanless MacBook Airs do great in normal tasks, if you're gonna push them hard to their limits for a constant 5 to 10 minutes, you will lose 15 to 20% of your performance compared to the M2 13-inch MacBook Pro, which has a fan and can maintain its performance. Now, if you combine really heavy CPU loads with really heavy graphics loads for say 20 minutes or so, the performance loss can become even greater. And at the same time, this is where the 14 and 16-inch MacBooks push even further ahead because of their dual fans and powerful graphics, especially the 16-inch M2 Max. So as you see, if you can really push your system, spending the extra money is well worth it, not even counting the other benefits. but most people aren't going to be pushing it this hard unless they're doing this professionally. Looking at graphics performance alone, the jump from M1 Air to 13-inch M2 Air is substantial, and the 14-inch Pro also has a great boost, especially considering the performance is consistent. Now, the base 14-inch M2 Pro can be upgraded to 19-core graphics to match the 16-inch performance and even to the M2 Max, but I personally would not recommend a 14-inch with M2 Max because of the smaller size. The battery life will be really low, and it won't perform as well as a 16-inch because it gets quite hot. I also want to point out that all of the M2 series laptops have SSDs that are half the speed in their base capacity. So an M1 Air's 256 gig will be about twice as fast as a 256 gig M2 Air or Pro, and this could lead to lower performance for large transfers or if you're doing a ton of multitasking where your RAM is full. Now, this is really helped if you upgrade to 16 gigs of RAM or if you upgrade to 512 gigs of SSD. On the 14 and 16-inch MacBooks, the base 512s are also half the speed compared to the 1 terabyte and higher models, but since they are already so fast, it is not as big of a deal. To make choices based on performance simple, if you care about it, I would skip the M1 Air. And for most people doing normal productivity and even some photo and video editing, the M2 series is great, with 16 gigs of RAM being a nice upgrade and the 15-inch Air giving you more real estate. If you really need to push your system with tough apps and you make a living doing so, a 14 or 16-inch is absolutely worth it. And honestly, almost no one needs the M2 Max unless you do raw video editing or 3D graphics or something where you know that all the graphics power is actually going to be used instead of just sitting there untouched. Now, if you guys want to dive deep into performance based on a variety of real-world applications and you are having a tough time choosing between two of these MacBooks, we have a ton of head-to-head real-world comparisons that you can find on our channel, or you just search it up in YouTube. So to summarize, the M1 Air is perfect for those looking to get into the Apple ecosystem, getting an Apple laptop as cheaply as possible, and if they're using it for basic tasks. While the M2 MacBook Air is for those who want their fresh redesign, the better display and MagSafe, and with the 15-inch model giving you a big screen without costing a fortune. Now, the M2 13-inch MacBook Pro is for those who need a fan for extended workloads but can't stretch their budget to the 14-inch model. Now, the 14-inch MacBook Pro is the best value for productivity work while being compact, and I think this might be the best seller overall if you care about performance, while the 16-inch MacBook Pro is for those who need a larger display with the additional features that the 15-inch Air doesn't offer. Once again, we have Amazon links to big discounts on these MacBooks down in the description below, and you can still add AppleCare afterwards on your Mac, so don't worry about that. Go ahead and click that circle above to subscribe and check out one of those great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I'll see you in the next video.